Hey everyone, it's Jim
And Charles
from Melotone Amps and
Valves and More.
In fact, this is Tube Lab number 227 and Melotone Amps number 11. And it's basically the Phono release party. Though we don't have any party hats and there's no drinkies, but it's still part of the workday. So
We're definitely not being lazy and only making one video for both channels today.
Yeah. But first, caution everyone, electronics and tube amplifiers can have very high voltages present, which can be lethal. Exercise extreme caution when working around them. Always consult a professional technician when in doubt. Now, we've never done a video that both channels share, so we'll see how it goes. Basically, everyone's going to get the same first half. Then the MTA viewers will peel off and we'll be talking mostly directly to the test builders and future builders that are interested in the new Phono kit. And the rest of you from Valves and More, we're going to take a look and see what came in this week. So let's get started. So after months of work and a really intense day of work, the new universal kit Phono preamp is in the store, and if you've inquired about being a test builder, you probably are looking at an email right now with a link to the store, and we're going to be talking more about test builder information on the second half. But one of the we get a lot of correspondence from around the world in both stores, and in the Melotone Amp store, one of the most common questions about the Rocket kit, which was the first modern line, and this is the second in the modern line, is how does it sound? And I almost take it for granted that everybody knows this sounds great. But of course that doesn't tell you anything. So it might help a little bit to talk about our design philosophy. First of all, we work in pure Class A. Now, what does pure mean? Pure means no feedback. And Class A, well, Class A is the gold standard for pretty much any circuit that's amplifying. It essentially means that the gain stage is up and running 100% of the time, and there is no chance of phase distortion because there's no other gain stage operating adjacent to it. So let's say a push-pull stage, a Class AB, or God help us, a Class D, which is basically a high-speed switching amplifier. And when you're listening to a movie, and we'll watch a show later in the evening most days. A Class D home amplifier, 5-channel or 7-channel or whatever we're up to now. I think ours is 7 channels. And a good Class D design is fine. It can cope with the kind of dynamics. You're not really critically listening to every nuance of every footstep in the film.
And you're probably going to be limited by the content anyway.
Yeah. But when you're at home and you're listening to one of your favorite albums, you've got a nice little beverage beside you, the curtains are drawn, or in our case, we have a roller blind is down, it's very peaceful, you're trying to chill out, you're closing your eyes, and you're just listening to the entire soundscape in front of you. You hear every little nuance in a high definition system. And Class A absolutely will rock you. If you've never actually heard pure Class A, if your amplifiers are Class D, which is really common, Class C amplifiers essentially save money. That's what they do. They give you a lot of power in a smaller box, and they save money. They save money for the manufacturer, they save money for the purchaser.
It's the same reason for Class AB. You're trying to get more power out of less tubes, although in that case it is more tubes.
Yeah, but it's the way of getting power tubes to generate their maximum output. So now in preamps, it's especially tube preamps, it's relatively easy to operate in pure Class A, but a lot of manufacturers don't, or they operate in hybrid designs in which they've got solid state circuitry mixed up with the tubes. So there's none of that in here. The Phono kit is called a universal because it's designed to allow you to roll the 6-volt version of the 6SL7 or the 12-volt version, which is the 12SL7. And the cathode follower is the best unknown vintage tube, I think, ever. And that's the 6N6P. And there's really only a couple of versions of that. Almost all of the existing inventory was made by NEVZ in the former Soviet Union, and they are just, the manufacturing tightness of those tubes is just stunning. With a lot of vintage tubes, even high quality ones, will find variations between periods of manufacturing. Even in case lots we'll find variations, not with these things. They're all made good. And
except for whenever you get into near the end of the Soviet Union. And then everything kind of gets a little wonky, but actually still not too bad.
Yeah, well, our cutoff date for purchasing Soviet-era tubes is about 1989. We prefer to be in the 60s and 70s, but anywhere in the mid-80s is fine. So what a universal preamp gives you is a lot of flexibility, because basically any 6SL or 12SL7 tube ever made can be rolled in here. And all you have to do is change your switch mode power supply. So you would have a 6-volt or a 12-volt switch mode. There's a separate entrance here at the back for it, beside the main IEC cord. And yeah, so I think we're still talking about how it sounds. We're coming full circle. So pure Class A is clarity. Above all else, it's clarity.
And if there is any added distortion, it's in the even harmonics, mainly the second harmonic, and other forms of amplifiers tend to add odd harmonics, which are grating, difficult to listen to. So this does add a little bit of warmth to it, but it does have great clarity.
Yeah, I mean, the natural warmth that comes from the 6SL7 makes the preamp musical. And if there's one thing that warms the heart of an audio designer more than any other reviewer comment you could possibly imagine, besides, this is the cheapest, bestest, greatest thing I've ever seen.
And it sounds okay.
Yeah, it's when we got initial feedback on the classic line version. This is based on the circuit of the classic line. It's a bit of a modification, so I would call it a Mark II version. But musical is what the reviewers kept saying, one after another. And I said, yeah, that's spot on. That's exactly how we felt about it. It's what we were trying to make. The biggest single problem with playing records these days is that the 99% of the phono preamps out there many of them sound awful, but all of them sound flat and lifeless. So it doesn't matter how good a record you've got, you've chosen the pressing really carefully based on reviews, you put it through 2 high gain stages of a very neutral, flat sounding preamp, and on the other side, that great musical record all of a sudden sounds like the worst CD you've ever heard.
And that's assuming you haven't put it through something digital or added some feedback to it, which is actually really common with a lot of our AA equalization stages. And this uses none of that.
Yeah, it's a passive equalization stage, and we did a lot of experimenting when we developed the classic line, and we thought that the solution to the bass problem and creating a great sounding EQ, EQ just stands for equalization, right? So everybody knows that records are basically encoded, and we have to restore the frequencies to their correct position. when we bring the signal from the turntable cartridge through the phono preamp. So the phono preamp does two things. It has to have a lot of gain, huge amounts of gain, because the signal off of a phono cartridge is very, very low, roughly 5 millivolts, so 5/1000ths of a volt RMS, and it has to restore the equalization. So when we were doing our initial experiments years ago now, we just didn't like the feedback circuits. They were fiddly to work with, they just weren't sounding good, and I said, okay, let's go further back in time to the original RCA circuit, which was a passive circuit. And that's when the magic started to happen. And I said, okay, there's no feedback. Right away, that explains a lot of why we like the sound of this. And there's a minimal amount of intrusion. Now, it also takes a lot of gain to work with that passive circuit. So the 6SL7 just gets us there. But it gets us there, and that's all that really matters. So at this point, we're gonna break. Half of us are going to head, well, actually thousands of us are going to head into the lab, and we'll see what's come in. And the other half are going to talk a little bit about the test builders and how the new store listing is arranged, and just give you a hand checking out. Okay, through the magic of editing, we're back in my lab. And Charles, what came in this week? Well, it's sort of a mixture of what we've been digging back in the warehouse and what came in.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with that gorgeous looking Sylvania box?
Yeah, so it's rare to find boxes this old in this sort of condition. Just look at that. That is a very early Sylvania.
It almost looks like a fake.
Yeah, yeah. If you see boxes in this condition, most of the time they are remade, but this is actually a 14F7 box. And that is the 12-volt version of the 7F7, which is the Lochtel version of a 6SL7.
So this is, once we rebase this tube and put an octal base on it, it basically becomes a 12SL7. In fact, the electrical parts inside are identical. So, and if you were to look at a 6SL7 of this generation, the electrical parts are identical. The only difference would be the filament itself. And that hasn't been out of the box for...
These would have been made probably in the early 40s.
Yeah, or the late 30s. Early 40s, I think. So we're talking about over 80 years it's been sitting in that box. And given the condition of the box, that really tells us that this was in probably a climate-controlled warehouse. So probably a manufacturer's warehouse or an electronics supplier's warehouse.
And this is a particularly interesting version of it. So you can actually see in the center here, we have a copper support post. And that tells us that this plate structure probably came off of a line that was meant to go towards military production, because many of the Sylvania military tubes had that extra support post on them. And so this is probably equivalent to a mil-spec 6SL7 from back in the day.
Yeah, now why is this important? Well, if you were watching earlier, you know that we've just released the universal, the modern line universal kit Phono preamp, and it can take a 12-volt preamp tube as well as a 6-volt. So we'll be rebasing a whole bunch of these. We've got boxes of them that we've picked up over the years that need our attention, and
it does take a bit of work to put a new base on them, but then you can use them any spot. You would be able to use a 12SL7 or a 6SL7 for the 7F7 version.
Yeah, and some of the work is toxic, so a nice summer day in the in the shade in the workshop.
Yeah, good ventilation.
That's good work. And we found one of our a small lot of one of our favorite EL84s, or as it's known in North America, or was known as the 6BQ5, but nobody uses that designation anymore.
EL84 sounds cooler.
Everybody uses, and it's right that we use EL84. The Philips invented the type as basically a miniature EL34, and so they designated it as an EL84. But this is late production. What's the year on that box?
I think 1078.
Yeah, so the plant, the last Sylvania plant in the US, I think closed in 1982, something like that. So this might have been the last EL84 to come off the line. And these are the black plate version. Everybody wants the black plate version, so we've specialized in them. And we have a few new old stock quads in the store. And believe it or not, we even have a new old stock Mullard quad. We actually had them for years, and Charles rediscovered them.
Yeah, we didn't even have them in the store, and then they sold out very quickly, except for that one quad that's left. So if you're interested in a beautiful quad of 6BQ5s, EL84s, well, we have a couple of great options.
And there's a lot of really awesome amps that use the EL84. And Mullard themselves published amplifier designs, and one of their focuses was the EL84, because I think designers felt it was the future. They're compact, they're powerful, they're more affordable than a bigger tube. So I think a lot of people over the years have gotten into and run EL84 amps.
Very popular.
And last of all, you've got one of what I think is the most affordable 6SN, good sounding vintage 6SN7s ever made. And this is the early Photon.
Yeah, so now we actually have two versions here. This one we already had in stock, but we wanted to show it as a comparison here because this is a mid-60s production right here. This is 1965. And over here is one of the oldest ones that we've actually seen. This is a let me see if I can get that on screen here. I can barely even see the label myself.
I think it's 1957.
Yeah, so that's 1957. And just like we love with other Soviet tubes, the changes to them over the years are so minimal. So on these two here, you can see we have a small change in the bottom mica. They have these little cutouts here where they don't have them on the later version. And there's a small change to the plate getter size, and that is it.
Yeah, and this is the last production year we've ever seen, I think, for the early types is 1968. And I think I've only seen one tube. So there probably was an early 68 that they stopped making the early type and they started making a more modern version. The more modern version is common these days. It's cheap as chips and it sounds awful.
Yeah, and they weren't actually made by Photon. Those were NEVZ tubes. And we love NEVZ tubes, as long as they're not the 6SN7s.
Yeah. So anyways, we've got a few more in stock. So if you're on a tight budget and you want a good sounding vintage 6SN7 at an affordable price, the Photons, they're the way to go in my opinion. And if you stay to the very end, talking about saving some money, there's some cheers codes to help you out. There's a secret code that a lot of people get and save a lot of money. We can reach almost everybody around the world with $20 flat rate shipping. If you're in a really rural area, a long way from us, what I normally ask customers to do is not to take a discount. If you know the shipping is going to be really expensive and you want it tracked, just don't grab a cheers code, and that usually covers the difference in shipping cost.
And please message us ahead of time.
Yeah, yeah. But for most of our customers, we can reach you with flat rate $20 shipping, and if the order is $150 or more after discount, the shipping's on us, folks. Stay safe, everyone. This is Jim
And Charles.
signing off. Cheers, everyone.